Well, hello and welcome to another installment of quarterly crypto market data. So exciting. I processed a lot of the Q1 2019 data in mid-March, the Ides of March. So if you want the straight up data, just go ahead to the website cryptkeepers.club. I'll post the link in the comment or description section as usual, and you can check out all of the different numbers, and I put up some charts for some of you guys who are more visual learners when it comes to stuff like this. But I like doing a supplementary video because when I'm processing the data, you definitely get a lot more insights like between the lines, between the cells, so to speak, of the numbers. And so I want to give you some of those not so obvious insights that you might not pick up on when you're just going over the actual like rank and order of things. So that said, go ahead and just pull up a chair, grab a cup of liquid enthusiasm, and kick it with me for a little while I tell you all of these little hidden gems and secrets of numbers. I think the main thing to start out with is the fact that the top 25 is what I evaluate, and in 2018 the top 25 encompassed, a decent amount of coins, because off and on, like every quarter, there would be some that would kind of come out of the top 25 and others that would go in, but I usually continue to represent all of them. But in 2019, I decided to kind of hit the refresh button, so to speak, and I only kept representation of the projects that are as of 2019, or when I did this data poll in the middle of March of 2019, the projects that are still represented in the top 25. And so the two that were now welcomed to the top 25 that hadn't been there previously in 2018 or prior are Crypto.com, which is formerly Monaco coin, or Monaco MCO was the token, and it's representative of this project that does what was called the Monaco card. Now it's, I think, their Crypto.com card, because they actually bought the domain, like they invested enough money to buy Crypto.com as a domain, which is a very highly coveted domain, especially in this market. And so since they probably spent so much money on that, they're trying to capitalize on the marketing of the fact that they are Crypto.com. So they've rebranded from Monaco and Monaco card, which is a debit card that you can use to spend digital currency with. They've rebranded from Monaco card to Crypto.com. So Crypto.com is now, I think it was number 22 when I pulled the numbers. And Waves also got added to the top 25 market cap. So welcome Waves, which is kind of cool. I remember hearing about them a couple of years ago, and it's a platform set up to be kind of like Ethereum in the sense that you can build other applications and stuff on top of Waves. And when I checked it out even a while ago, it seemed like a good project. So the fact that it's still doing well enough to now be in the top 25 is pretty cool. And that being said, there were definitely I'd say a solid handful that got kicked off, like projects that you saw pretty readily in the top 25 that were being evaluated throughout 2018 to now the quarter one of 2019 were no longer featured. Those are Dogecoin, but I mean, granted, with a disclaimer, like every single day the market cap fluctuates enough to where some of these end up back in the top 25 and then other days they might drop off. But at the time of the data poll, Dogecoin was no longer represented in the top 25. It was number 27. Bitcoin Gold was number 29, Qdom was number 30, Omise Go was 31, and Lisk got bumped down to like 34. So Doge, Bitcoin Gold, Omise Go, Lisk, and Qdom are all off the top 25. Okay, now let's move into the inception date data. And there's nothing like too epically different about the inception date data, because there's nothing too epically different that changes about the inception date, because nothing does change about the inception date, because it is what it is. But that being said, an insight that I pulled this time is the fact that over the top 14 projects that are listed from the top 25 market cap, 14 of them have been around since 2017 or longer potentially. So yeah, between Bitcoin being released in 2009, 2010, and then Now, you know, all the way till 2019, majority of the projects were at least 2017 or older. So that goes to show that whole first mover advantage. A lot of the projects that have been around longer and been developed longer are tending to do better, which shouldn't be surprising, but still good to know. The one thing that I did notice that is unusual and not readily available in the data is the fact that in 2019, like Q3 of 2019, any ICOs that happened in 2019 have not made it to the top 25 market cap. So all of the top 25 market cap ones that inception date was evaluated for, none of them were released in 2019. So yeah, the older ones are holding it down. And then let's move into the number of exchanges. So something I also want to note in this video that was kind of exciting for me is you have the order of the top 25, right? And I wrote those down on the date that I pulled all this data from. And I was curious to know, of those top 25 and the order of those top 25, are any one of these factors that I evaluate a good predictor of the order of the top 25 market cap? And that being said, like I went through and within a standard deviation of 1, because again, these things fluctuate every day quite a bit. So I gave myself a standard deviation of 1. And within that standard deviation, like how many or how closely does the data ranking and evaluation match the actual market cap ranking and evaluation? And the closest one, like the best predictor, was actually the number of exchanges that something is listed on. So there was 10, which was the best. I mean, inception date was able to predict with a prediction factor of like 5. The code repositories was able to predict with a prediction factor of 6. Twitter followers was a prediction factor of 7. Reddit was a factor of 8. And then platforms, the number of platforms something's listed on is a factor of 9. But the number of exchanges that a coin is listed on was actually, you know, like I was accurate for 10 of them, which was actually kind of surprising and interesting. So in terms of how much weight you want to give certain factors when you're doing investments and evaluation on investments, like you might want to give more weight to the projects that are listed on the most exchanges. Like I guess there's more validity in those. So that being said, the number of exchanges, what I thought was most interesting, and again, not readily noticeable. I also have the data up. As the fact, and I have a cat in my glass. Isn't that funny? Anyways, so Bitcoin was actually in 7th place. So when you're going online and you're thinking of like, because to me, the number of exchanges something's listed on is really representative of how much access is available within that for that coin. And obviously if you're listed on more exchanges, you're more accessible for investment, which is usually a pretty positive thing. Yet Bitcoin was like number 7. Yeah, I think it was, yeah, Bitcoin was number 7 in terms of the number of exchanges it's listed on. And I also noticed this time, because I go through and straight up count the number of exchanges that each one of the top 25 is listed on. And when I was going through the counts, I remember getting through the bit section, like on names of exchanges. Exchanges had the word bit in it so much more prior to 2019. So now, like, I think a lot of times, like, Bitcoin was the name that a lot of these digital currency related businesses were like writing off the goodwill of and therefore the name of. But now, as of 2019, that's starting to decrease a lot because even a lot of exchanges aren't calling themselves bit something anymore. So that was really interesting. And the fact that Bitcoin, which is number 1 in market cap and notoriously like the OG coin, so to speak, is not listed on nearly as many exchanges, or not nearly as many, but not listed on as many exchanges as Litecoin, Ripple, Ethereum, EOS, Bitcoin Cash, and Dash. So all 6 of those were listed on more exchanges than Bitcoin, which is just kind of gnarly to me. Like Litecoin's listed on 154 exchanges, Ripple's listed on 114 exchanges, Ethereum's on 103 exchanges, like EOS is on 99, Bitcoin Cash is on 99, Dash is on 95, and Bitcoin's only on 92 exchanges. So relatively speaking, that was kind of strange, but that's why it's interesting to do this. What else? Okay, let's move on to platforms. So the most interesting thing about pulling the platform data is the fact that it's not representative of the top 25 market cap. Like when I go through and just find out how many projects are listed on different platforms, I take the only 23 that exist for this data. So in other words, out of the 2,146 coins listed on CoinMarketCap, over 2,000 coins worth, there's only 23 of those projects that are considered platforms that have other applications being built on them. And I only look at those 23 when I'm pulling this. And Ethereum is the most classic example of what I'm talking about in terms of a platform. And Ethereum is definitely hands down still the best, pretty much untouchable example of how well it's doing. Because Ethereum has over 1,100 projects listed on it, and Neo is in second place, the second highest, only has like 27. Yeah, at the time this data was pulled, Neo only had 27 projects listed on it, and Ethereum has over 1,100. So not even a comparison. And something that I also think is kind of ridiculous is the fact that Ethereum Classic still ends up in the top 20, usually top 20 market cap whenever I'm doing these data pulls, but Ethereum Classic has 0 projects listed on it. So of all the 23 platforms that have projects on them, everyone else has at least a couple, if not over 1,000. But Ethereum Classic is the only one that has none. And it experienced a hack recently, but it's still within the top 20 market cap. So that's just kind of odd to me, but anyways, there's the information on it. And something else I thought was really interesting in terms of platform goes is like if you're out there and you're trying to come up with like a new crypto project that you want to capitalize on, if you go with the route of being a platform like Ethereum is, or like Waves is, or like a lot of these other ones are within the top 23, or with a lot of these other 23 are, then your likelihood of ending up in the top 25 market cap is a lot higher. Because of these total 23 platforms that exist, 9 of them are listed on the top 25. Like that's a really big deal in my opinion. So in terms of like what you want to spend your energy on, it's probably a good idea to be a platform that applications can get built on, because your odds of ending up in the top 25 market cap are quite a bit higher. So that was really interesting. Let's move into code repository data. Take another sip from the cat cup, because my voice is cracking. Okay, code repositories. The most interesting and odd thing about the code repository data this time was that Neo and Binance have a lot more stars than they have commits. They have, each of them respectively, have over 2,000 stars. So there's people going into GitHub, their code repository, and starring their repository and saying, oh yeah, this project's great, essentially. Yet their number of commits, like Neo, even though it has over 2,700 stars, it has only 562 commits, which is kind of rare. Most of the time, and Binance is even more of a discrepancy in the sense that Binance has over 2,000 stars, yet only has 59 commits on its repository, which means like for the rate that people are actually pushing code and developing on this project, on this network, the amount of people that are actually liking it is way, 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 way higher, which is usually the opposite. Like for most of the other coins in the top 25, outside of the top like 3, which are just like the all stars and everybody loves them, so like the starring is just like excessive. But outside of that, like most other projects that Neo and Binance would be in the same league as are definitely, like they definitely have more commits happening than they do stars. So that's just kind of weird. It almost makes you wonder, in other words, it makes me wonder if the some of the marketing team that's in charge of Neo and in charge of Binance is just like telling people to go online and star their repository. I don't know. Possible. If you know something, let me know, because that's just weird. Outside of that, within the code repos, let's see. Maker, yeah, Maker definitely had the most noticeable increase of all of the other, like of all the other action within the repositories, because Maker had an over 30% increase in the number of stars and commits. And Bitcoin Cash was actually, oh, this was funny. Bitcoin Cash was actually the first project that I've ever seen when doing these evaluations that actually lost stars, which is kind of weird. Like, I didn't even know you could take stars away. So essentially people have gone in and liked a repository and then like all of a sudden not liked it. So Bitcoin Cash actually lost 2 stars in its repository and dropped a little bit, which is very weird. So then going into Twitter and Reddit data, because I think something that's also important when you're evaluating a coin is its hype, because let's face it, there's a lot of that in this market and it's influential on price. So I picked Twitter and Reddit because those are some pretty common platforms to give you an idea of social media wise and hype wise how certain coins and projects are doing. So that being said, the most interesting thing, I'm going to pull it up on my laptop too in case I actually want to cite some stuff. The most interesting thing is the fact that Ethereum, I think, is in number 4. Okay, so Ethereum in terms of number of Twitter followers as of Q1 in 2019 had 440,540. So over by the time this is filmed, probably close to 450,000 followers on Twitter. Yet Vitalik Buterin, I don't know, like tomato, I don't know if I'm supposed to say Buterin or Buterin. I like saying Buterin because it reminds me more of computers, like a boot, you know? Anyways, so Vitalik, though, on his own Twitter account has over 840,000 followers when I pulled this data. So Vitalik's account alone would have put him in 4th place, which is where Ethereum would be. But if you combined Ethereum projects, the ethereum.org like Twitter account and Vitalik's account, they would easily be in 1st place, because Binance is actually, go figure, Binance coin has the most Twitter followers. And this is, okay, saying this out loud is making me think like mystery kind of being solved. There must just be better marketing for Binance. I wouldn't be surprised if people within Binance, like followers of Binance, have been encouraged to go star their repositories, follow them on Twitter. They're probably doing a bigger push when it comes to social media presence. But anyways, Binance coin has almost 1 million followers on Twitter. Bitcoin was 2nd place. And Ripple was 3rd. All of them have over 900,000. But again, Vitalik on his own has 840,000 followers on Twitter. Let's see. Oh, Stellar Lumens, that was interesting. Their account, in case you want to follow Stellar Lumens, had the biggest increase and their account got moved. It used to be, I don't remember what it used to be, but it's now moved to @Stellar.org is their new Twitter handle from, I think it was just @Stellar Lumens, something like that. But yeah, @Stellar.org. And that transition to the new Twitter account also accompanied them by a couple 100,000 more followers, because in Q4 of 2018, they only had 75,000 followers on their Twitter account. And now in Q1 of 2019, they have 267,000 followers on their account. So that's an increase of over 250%. That's huge. So good job, Stellar Lumens, on upping your Twitter game quite a bit. And then Bitcoin Cash, this is weird. Bitcoin Cash is still struggling in terms of like relatively speaking on Twitter. I know something happened with their old Twitter account, and so they're kind of doing a reboot of their Twitter account. But it's not working out so well for them because relatively speaking, Bitcoin Cash only, let's see, only has 653 followers on Twitter. Not 1,000, 653 followers on Twitter. Yet it's usually in the top like 5 to 10 market cap. Like when I pulled this, it was number 6. So that's kind of strange. Okay, Reddit, not a lot of really interesting things to report on Reddit. I think what is kind of obvious is the fact that Bitcoin SV, Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision, had the highest increase in the number of users, and I guess not followers, like they're called some different, like forum members. We'll go with forum members. So Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision, Bitcoin SV, had an increase of 40% of its forum members, and Neo actually had the biggest, so that was the biggest gainer, and the biggest loser was Neo, biggest drop was Neo, losing 10% of its forum members on Reddit. So yeah, That's the data. Again, I think like the most interesting thing was going through and actually trying to see like of the ranking that came from each of these evaluations, like the rank of each of them, how closely that matched the rank within the market cap. And again, the number of exchanges that a project is listed on was definitely the best predictor, so probably a good factor to consider. And yeah, I definitely recommend for a more like concise version of this, and you can deduce so much from the numbers that got pulled this quarter as usual. So I highly encourage you to go check it out. Thank you for joining, and I guess I will see you in Q2 of 2019. And I mean, the markets just popped recently and are rallying a little bit more, so we'll see what fluctuates within this next round of data.